Greetings. My name is Ashley, and I'm 32 years old. About 5 years ago, I married the most incredible man I've ever known, Bobby. From the moment we met, his kind-heartedness and fun-loving nature drew me in. He has this uncanny ability to make me feel cherished, no matter the circumstances. Every day with him feels like a blessing, a constant reminder of the love we share. However, there's another side to this story, one that involves Catherine, my mother-in-law. From the very beginning, Catherine seemed to have an issue with me. I've always understood that Bobby is her pride and joy, the son she holds dear, and naturally, she wants to protect him. But Catherine's way of protecting often veered into the realm of hostility, cloaked in the guise of concern. She had a knack for disguising her jabs as innocent remarks, carefully designed to provoke a reaction. When confronted, she would skillfully play the victim, painting herself as misunderstood. It's a type of behavior many people recognize, but in my case, it wasn't just someone in my life, it was my mother-in-law. My upbringing couldn't have been more different. I was raised to value honesty and confrontation over silent tolerance. If something bothered me, I was taught to address it directly, not let it fester in silence. It was this forthrightness, among other traits, that Bobby loved about me. Where I was bold and outspoken, he was gentle and reserved. They say opposites attract, and in our case, it was certainly true. We complemented each other perfectly. I've always had a keen sense of people, thanks to my background in life coaching. I could see through Catherine's facade almost immediately. Despite her polite smiles and carefully chosen words, it was clear to me that her intentions were far from kind. Over time, I realized that our personalities were fundamentally at odds, a clash that became glaringly apparent during our very first meeting. It was a family dinner, just Bobby, his parents, and me. I was nervous but determined to make a good impression. Everything seemed to be going well until Catherine decided to make an unprovoked comment about my eating habits. "Maybe you should eat less," she said casually, as though offering me a helpful tip. The table fell silent. Her words were so unexpected, so brazen, that no one seemed to know how to respond. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, the heat rising to my cheeks as I glanced around the table. Bobby's father, Jeffrey, looked down at his plate, his discomfort mirroring mine. Bobby, on the other hand, was furious. "Mom, that's completely out of line," he snapped, his voice sharp with anger. Catherine, of course, backpedaled immediately. She claimed she hadn't meant any harm, that she was only offering advice, based on photos Bobby had shown her of me. "You looked better back then," she added, as if that softened the blow. Her words hit me like a slap. I was mortified but determined not to make a scene.
This was my first time meeting Bobby's family,
and I didn't want to tarnish the occasion, so I bit my tongue, forced a polite smile, and muttered a quiet, "Thank you," even as the frustration churned inside me. That dinner was just the beginning. As time passed, Catherine's remarks became more frequent, more pointed. Each interaction with her felt like navigating a minefield, never knowing what comment or action might set off an explosion. I held on to the hope that, over time, she would see how much I loved Bobby and how happy we were together. I thought maybe then she would ease off, but the opposite happened. The closer Bobby and I grew, the more antagonistic Catherine became. Surprisingly, my relationship with Bobby's father, Jeffrey, flourished. He was warm, kind, and supportive, a stark contrast to his wife. It was clear that Bobby had inherited his gentle nature from him. Jeffrey and I developed a bond that felt genuine, a source of comfort amidst the tension with Catherine. Bobby's extended family and friends were also incredibly welcoming. His childhood best friend, Wayne, who was practically a second son to Jeffrey and Catherine, embraced me with open arms. Everyone in Bobby's life seemed to accept me wholeheartedly, everyone except Catherine. The support from Bobby's family and friends became a lifeline, especially as we approached our wedding day. Catherine's efforts to undermine me didn't stop, and in fact, they intensified. She tried to dictate every detail of my wedding look, insisting that my hairstyle should replicate hers from her own wedding. When I politely declined, she insulted me outright, calling me ugly in front of my bridal party. Though she later tried to backtrack, the damage was already done. Catherine even found ways to turn compliments into subtle insults, comparing her youthful beauty to mine in a way that left no doubt about her intentions. It was Geoffrey who stepped in, his patience finally worn thin. "Catherine, that's enough," he said firmly, putting an end to her tirade. His intervention was a relief, but the sting of her words lingered. Despite everything, I refused to let Catherine ruin our special day. The love and acceptance I received from the rest of Bobby's family helped me stay strong. But as time went on, I began to notice a change in myself. I was withdrawing, my once bright energy dimmed by the constant negativity. Catherine's influence was taking a toll, not just on me but on the life Bobby and I were trying to build together. I knew something had to change. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about protecting our happiness and ensuring that Catherine's toxicity didn't overshadow the love we had worked so hard to nurture. As I read further, the letter took an unexpected and troubling turn. Catherine expressed feelings of diminished love for her own son, Bobby, contrasted with an enduring affection for Wayne. Her words painted a shocking picture, hinting at a preference for Wayne that seemed to overshadow her bond with Bobby. The discovery was staggering, revealing family dynamics far more complex than I had ever imagined. Caught between the impropriety of reading someone else's private correspondence and the weight of its revelations, I felt paralyzed. The letter's contents couldn't be ignored, they demanded action. Yet, the enormity of what I'd uncovered left me unsure of my next move. With everyone who mattered gathered in the house, I knew the decision I made now could irreversibly alter the family's course. I read the letter again, hoping I'd misunderstood. But the words remained the same, cold, deliberate, and devastating. The truth was undeniable. Clutching the letter, I returned to the dining room, where a few of the family still lingered. Geoffrey, ever the peacemaker, was quick to reassure me. Apologizing on Catherine's behalf, he promised she would come around and insisted I was welcome in Florida. "She's just in one of her moods," he said, confident he could smooth things over. But Geoffrey's assurances faded into the background of my thoughts. The letter in my hand was far more urgent than Catherine's fleeting temper. Bobby's concern was evident. His eyes searched mine, filled with worry, as though he feared I'd reached my breaking point after enduring so much of his mother's hostility. Over the years, he'd often marveled at my patience, moved by my unwavering commitment to our relationship despite the challenges. My love for Bobby had kept me strong, but this discovery tested that strength in ways I hadn't anticipated. Catherine was conspicuously absent. When I asked where she was, Geoffrey explained she'd retreated to nurse a headache, likely a result of our earlier confrontation. Her absence was frustrating. What I had to share concerned her most of all, yet Geoffrey and Bobby encouraged me to proceed without her. The worry etched on Bobby's face made it clear that delaying any longer would only deepen his anxiety. "Fine," I said, exhaling deeply as I braced myself. While I was in the kitchen, I found something revealing. The room stilled, everyone sensing the gravity of the moment. I began to share what I had discovered. As I read aloud, the words hung heavy in the air, each line a blow that deepened the shock on their faces. Catherine's letter revealed her simmering resentment toward me and her drastic plans to favor Wayne over Bobby. She described her decision to disinherit Bobby in favor of Wayne, blaming me entirely for the rift she perceived in her relationship with her son. The letter made clear her bitterness and her readiness to sever ties with Bobby in a bid to punish him, and, by extension, me. When I finished, silence blanketed the room. Each of them was processing the betrayal in their own way. Geoffrey, usually composed, was on the verge of tears, his face etched with anguish. Wayne, visibly shaken, struggled to comprehend the extent of Catherine's intentions. And Bobby, my Bobby, sat rigid, his face a storm of emotions. Fury and heartbreak warred within him as he grappled with the realization of his mother's cruel plans. How could she do this? Bobby's voice finally broke the silence, trembling with disbelief and anger. "She blames you for everything and is willing to throw me away because of it?" The rawness of his pain struck all of us, exposing the cracks Catherine's manipulation had long been creating. Geoffrey tried to speak but faltered, his usual composure shattered by the depth of his wife's betrayal. Wayne, his voice laced with guilt, muttered, "I had no idea she felt this way, Bobby. I'm so sorry. The room felt heavy with emotion, the weight of Catherine's bitterness pulling us down. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for Bobby but for all of us. Catherine's toxicity had poisoned the family, and the time had come to confront it head-on. This was no longer about me or even Bobby. It was about healing the wounds Catherine had inflicted before they could fester any further.